One supplier, zero competition. Most procurement teams think that that would mean that you have no leverage, that the vendor will be calling all the shots. But it's not true. Even when you're negotiating with a sole vendor or with a single source supplier that you've chosen, you still have power. And today, I'm going to show you how to use it to protect your margins, keep quality intact, strengthen the relationship, and still pay less. You see, I know if you work in procurement inside a large organization that you've dealt with this problem. You've been told that you can't switch suppliers, this is the only one, and suddenly you feel boxed in. Maybe it's a critical category, maybe there's specific tooling or regulatory approval that's required in that category. Either way, you feel like your leverage is slipping away. Margins are leaking quietly, 2 to 5%, sometimes more. Over a $10 million category, that's $100,000 to $500,000 worth of value gone every year. This video is about how to stop that leak, how to manufacture leverage where it looks like you've got none. So first, let's be clear on language because people often confuse these two. A single source supplier or vendor means that you chose to give all the spend in a category to one vendor only. Maybe it's because of strategy or simplicity, or maybe just because the relationship is really strong and it's been in place for a long time. But alternatives do exist in the market. You're just not using them. On the other hand, a sole source supplier or vendor means that there are no viable alternatives at this time. They might hold unique IP or regulatory approval or some kind of capability. If you want the product or service, it's them or nobody. So both scenarios feel like you have no leverage. But they're different games, and the strategy shifts depending on which one you find yourself in. Here's where most procurement teams get it wrong. You see, they lead with evidence. They build the benchmark pacts, the should cost models, the industry reports, and then they sit down and say, here's the proof that your price is too high. And it almost never works. Why? Because negotiation is not litigation. In litigation, you present your evidence, I present mine, and then a judge or a third party makes the decision. In corporate life, when you lead with evidence, you're basically asking your supplier to say, you're right and I'm wrong. My credibility is weaker than yours. And people don't like to do that. So research from Dartmouth University shows this clearly. When people are confronted with evidence that contradicts their position, they often double down. It's called the backfire effect. So you can bring the cleanest benchmark on earth, and what you get is a defensive supplier throwing down their own evidence back at you. You see, that's how negotiations stall. That's how you end up escalating up the chain, begging someone more senior to intervene. And that's not negotiation. That's litigation. You see, negotiation is different. Negotiation is built on interests. Here's the counterintuitive truth. If you want something from a supplier, the fastest way to get it is to give them something first. That's called reciprocity. You see, humans are wired for reciprocity. If you're respectful to me, I'm likely to be respectful back. If you give me a concession, I feel pulled to reciprocate. See, the smart move isn't to pound the table with evidence. The smart move is to signal flexibility early, create the frame of collaboration, and then to proceed with making trades. So here's one practical example, framing targets. Say you want an 18% reduction in the category. So instead of hitting a supplier with, we demand 18%, you tell them that the company target is 18, but with them specifically, we're only asking for a 16% reduction, 2 points less. You've just shown movement in their direction. You see, that signals reciprocity. And funnily enough, they lean in harder to hit the number. That's how you create leverage. Let me give you a story. Years ago, I worked on an assignment in Switzerland with a pharmaceutical company. They had a blockbuster drug that's just come off patent. And the CFO demanded that they need to bring the cost down fast. So we pulled the spend data, classic Pareto principle, 20% of vendors where 80% of the spend was. And we called those suppliers in for a 3-day summit. And we set 2 rules. 1, send decision makers who can commit your organizations. No juniors, no observers. And number 2, come prepared with how you can help us to hit our cost targets. Now, here's the clever framing. We told the room that the overall target was, let's say, 18.35% for cost reduction, very precise. But for each vendor, we set an individual target that's slightly below that. Let's say, for argument's sake, 16.26%, 17.10, 15.90, each one different. What happened? Suppliers saw that we were willing to move, that we weren't demanding the impossible, that this was going to be a give and take exchange. And the room leaned in. We got commitments we never would have by just throwing benchmarks at them. You see, that's reciprocity at scale. So what about single source suppliers? Remember, in single source, alternatives do exist. You've just chosen not to use them. That means that your leverage is still real, but dormant. The mistake here is to rush straight to the market test, to say, fine, we're going to put this out to bid. We're going to issue RFX. That's a nuclear move. It damages trust and makes the supplier defensive. Instead, sequence it. Start with reciprocity framing. Show your willingness to move in that direction. Explore their interests first. Only when that stalls will you remind them that you could open this competitively. See, it's not about bluffing. It's about showing that you do have options, but that your preference is to work together. That combination of collaboration plus latent competition is very powerful. Now, let's spend a few moments talking about the hard one, sole source. Here, there are no direct alternatives. They've got the patent or the unique process or the regulatory approval, and you're locked in. Or at least it feels like you're locked in. But even here, you've got some tools. Tool one is interest mapping. What do they really care about? It might be revenue stability. It might be faster cash. It might be less risk in their plant schedule. It might be reputational benefit, being seen as your strategic partner. Whatever it is, map those interests. Tool two is reciprocity. Offer something that they value, something like longer-term commitment, faster payment terms, cleaner forecasts, fewer mixed changes in exchange for some price relief. The third tool is the creation of alternatives. Sometimes just the threat of an alternative has impact. I've seen companies issue a press release saying that they're exploring vertical integration, making their own version of the product. Did they really intend to do it? Maybe not, but it changed the whole conversation. Research shows clearly that even the threat of potential competition reduces monopolistic pricing. So in sole source, you still have moves. You just have to be more creative. So how do you uncover the interests of your counterparts? So one framework I use is the 4-quadrant framework based on NBI or HPDI, which is vision, value, process, and relationships. Vision, what's their view of the future? Where do they want to go? Value, what are the hard numbers? Margin, cost, etc. Process, how things get delivered, risks managed, projects executed. And then lastly, relationships, the human side, reputation, morale, partnerships, productivity. Procurement people are usually very strong on the value element. We've got the numbers, we've got the analysis done, but professional negotiators, they balance all four. Ask questions across all four of these quadrants. That's how you discover interests that can be traded. So let's make this practical. Use open questions. Not can you drop your price, but what would it take to make it feasible for you to improve your terms? Also, frame collaboration. So we attack waste, not margin. Use silence. State your ask, then stop talking. Let them fill the gap. Maybe you're making small concessions early, or you signal to signal reciprocity, or you make sure you anchor your expectations before you walk in. Best case, likely case, walk away. These are small tactical things that make the strategy real. So let's bring this home. When you're negotiating with sole or single source suppliers, the easy trap is to think that you've lost all leverage or to pound the table with evidence. Both are mistakes. The smart play is to understand interests, frame reciprocity, and trade intelligently. With single source, you add the latent threat of competition, and with sole source, you add creativity and the creation of alternatives. Do that, and you'll protect margins, keep quality intact, strengthen relationships, and still end up paying less. If you found this useful, hit subscribe. And if you want me to help your team identify where you're losing 2 to 5% of your margin in your vendor negotiations, then go ahead and book a free negotiation margin index call. The link is in the description. Bring me your toughest sole source deal, and I'll show you exactly where the leverage is hiding.